UFC covered up fighter brain damage. For years, the UFC avoided serious discussion about brain trauma, even as signs piled up. Fighters like Gary Goodridge later revealed early onset dementia from repeated head trauma in the cage. The organization didn't fund CTE research until 2016, decades after the NFL started facing its own scandal. Even after high-profile cases of memory loss, depression, and aggression in retired fighters, the UFC stayed quiet. They prioritized hype and knockouts over health. Fighters were left to figure out their long-term damage on their own, with no support system. Dana White banned Ariel Helwani for breaking news. In 2016, journalist Ariel Helwani broke the story that Brock Lesnar would return at UFC 200. Instead of being credited, he was escorted out of the arena, banned for life, and had his credentials pulled. Why? He reported the truth before Dana White wanted it revealed. This exposed how tightly the UFC tries to control the narrative. Fighters get gag orders. Media gets punished for scoops. In the UFC's world, honesty is a threat. The backlash was so intense, Helwani was eventually unbanned. But the message was clear: speak when spoken to. Fighters forced to take fights, injured. Multiple UFC fighters have admitted they entered the octagon while seriously injured, and not by choice. Donald Cerrone fought with broken ribs. Michael Bisping defended his title with one eye. Tony Ferguson took fights days after weight cuts. The UFC's schedule first, safety second mentality pressures fighters into accepting bouts or risking being sidelined, unpaid, or cut. If you say no too often, you become difficult, and Lorden in your career dies quietly. Behind the highlight reels, there are taped up knees, torn ligaments, and concussions hidden under smiles. UFC contracts are legal slavery. Fighters like Francis Ngannou and Nate Diaz have publicly called UFC contracts one-sided and slavery. The UFC can cut fighters at any time, but fighters can't leave. They can't fight anywhere else even when contracts expire due to clauses that keep them frozen indefinitely. They're not allowed to have sponsors, can't use their own likeness, and the UFC owns their image forever. Ngannou had to walk away from a title and millions just to become a free man. Meanwhile, the UFC makes billions off athletes who can't legally fight back. Fighters died cutting weight. In 2015, one championship fighter, Yang Jianbing, died during a brutal weight cut. It sent shockwaves through the MMA world, but the UFC did almost nothing. Extreme weight cuts continue unchecked. Fighters like Khabib Nurmagomedov, Renan Barão, and TJ Dillashaw have all suffered near-fatal dehydration. Barão even fainted in a bathtub the day before a title fight. But weight-cutting culture is so ingrained to the UFC allows it, because fighters can still make weight, even if they're half dead doing it. It's a deadly game of tough it out. Dana White allegedly blacklists fighters who speak out. Randy Couture left the UFC after clashing with Dana, and was banned from cornering his son. Francis Ngannou was frozen out after contract disputes. Leslie Smith got cut after pushing for fighter unionization. Tyron Woodley said publicly that Dana hated him for not being the company man. Once a fighter becomes a problem, their push vanishes. No marketing, no big fights, just silence. Speak out about money, treatment, or contract, and suddenly your phone stops ringing. The blacklist isn't official, but everyone feels it. UFC manipulates fighter rankings. The UFC claims its rankings are voted on by independent media, but in reality, they're curated to build hype and protect stars. Fighters have been removed from rankings after turning down fights or leaving on bad terms. Others have mysteriously jumped spots after a big promo push. Merab Dvalishvili went on an 8-fight win streak and couldn't get near a title shot because he wouldn't fight his friend Aljamain Sterling. The rankings aren't merit-based. Their marketing tools move the pieces around to fit the storyline. Fighters make less than ring. Girls and YouTubers. A 2021 report revealed some ring girls made more than early prelim fighters. Paddy Pimblett said he earned more from a single barstool deal than his first 3 UFC fights combined. Jake Paul mocked UFC pay so hard it became a national conversation. Most fighters on early cards make $12,000 to show, $12,000 to win. After camp costs, taxes, and management, many walk away with nothing. While Dana White throws money at casinos and yachts, the athletes bleeding in the cage are left counting pennies. UFC fighters are world-class athletes with regional-level pay.